This brief lecture is the first half of Chapter 5, focused on audience analysis. So the book talks about there being some steps you need to take in audience analysis. How do you understand your audience? What are the first, second, third things you're going to do? So first of all, you're just going to gather information about your audience, and the next couple of slides will unpack exactly what that means. What kind of information are you looking for in situation and demographic information? Once you've gathered the information, the next step is to think about, well, how would this audience that I've now come to understand, respond to my topic? You come up with that hypothesis, that educated guess about how they're going to respond to your topic. You're going to frame your speech. You're going to adapt to that hypothesis. With the knowledge that you have about your audience, how are you going to change how you frame it? What comes first? What comes last? You're going to make stronger appeals this way, and you avoid alienating your audience. Remember that the whole goal is to take the information in your head and get your audience to connect to that, get them to accept it. An audience that is alienated from you, the speaker, is going to be less likely to accept your ideas. Situational demographics. Age. I'll just use myself here as an example. So I am 56 years old. Ethnic and cultural background. So people come from a lot of different cultural backgrounds, and a lot of different ethnic elements come into play. In my case, my ethnic and cultural background is, well, I'm largely, American mutt, but the most predominant of that cultural background is Norwegian American. I cook Norwegian foods, I sing Norwegian Christmas carols, those kinds of things. That is my ethnic and cultural background. Gender. We now understand gender as being much more complicated than simply binary, masculine, feminine. I am a straight guy, and I use he, him pronouns. I think of myself as male masculine. Group affiliations. I'm affiliated with a lot of groups. I was a Boy Scout way back in the day, not a very good Boy Scout. I didn't really want to earn merit badges, I just wanted to camp. But I'm a member of Theater B, I'm an ensemble member there, one of the founding members, for example. So group affiliations might include a person's church or political parties, organizations like the Elks or the Rotary Club that are service organizations, whatever those groups are that you are part of. Marital status. A very happily married couple in the picture here. Yes, I am married and have been for 26 years. And socioeconomic status. So I am decidedly middle class, between sort of income and the kind of house I live in, and all those things that we use to think about what is economic status and class. I am very American middle class. Worldwide, of course, that puts me on the upper end of the spectrum of income and the kind of privilege that brings. But in America, I'm very much middle of the road. So a second category of demographics that are worth thinking about move beyond sort of that situational. What are the identifiers for a person, like I've just said, age and marital status? But in terms of psychology, how does we think about the psychology of an audience? So one of those things is like, what are the values that the audience members hold? What are the principles that guide them? There's two different kinds here. Terminal values and instrumental values. So terminal values are the ends. What is the goal that you're trying to get to? So a goal might be, a terminal value is democracy rather than autocracy, right? Rather than a monarchy or rule by an oligarchy or the few. That sort of a terminal value might be, no, I really am interested in democracy. How do we get there? How do we get to a democracy? And do we use democratic means to get to a democracy, or do we use other means to get to a democracy? Beliefs are things that you can talk with and think about with an audience. What does the audience believe in? And one of the ways to think about this is just as faith. as opposed to knowledge, is that faith steps in where knowledge ends. So does religious beliefs is the obvious example here, in particular using a word like faith helps you to think of it that way. But other kinds of beliefs, do you believe that people are innately good, or is it a dog eat dog world? That there is evidence for either of those conclusions, but at some point the evidence runs out, and people just then make a leap and say, well, I really, at the end of the day, believe that people are good, or at the end of the day, I believe that people are not good. That kind of thing is a way of differentiating people in terms of their demographics. Attitudes is sort of, how do they feel about things? Do you like hockey? Do you not? Right? So it's different from belief. It's not like I believe in hockey, but what is my attitude towards hockey? Is it fun? Is it too violent? Those kinds of things. Is it good for people? All that. I'm a hockey fan. Okay, the other one to think about here are needs. That in terms of psychological demographics, what do people need? And this guy named Maslow created a hierarchy of needs that is a really useful tool. So that next slide will go over Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I guarantee you this will be on the exam. So Maslow was a communications studies guy who was also a philosopher, and he set this up, and I think it's a useful image and way to think about it. So at the foundation, this is going to turn into a pyramid, and so we think about foundational, at the bottom of the pyramid, the thing that holds everything up are physiological needs, like clothing, food, shelter. The next set of needs are safety needs. So if once you kind of are good on food, clothing, and shelter, then the next thing you're looking for is safety. How do you feel safe from the environment? How do you feel safe from other humans? That kind of thing. Then there are social needs. People are social animals. We want to interact. We want to have connections with other humans. That's where these social needs come in. Esteem is next. And esteem is like, how do you feel about yourself? And do you feel like you are respected? Those kinds of things. Finally, it's self-actualization. At the top of the pyramid is, are you becoming the person that you should be to really fulfill your potential? So looking at this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as you sort of scan it from bottom to top or top to bottom, maybe think about this in terms of a TV series like The Walking Dead. Any kind of a zombie apocalyptic environment really gets after and helps you to think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? At the bottom, it's just, can you survive the zombies? Or the other environmental factors. Once the group in your post-apocalyptic zombie thing has gotten themselves immediately safe from not getting bitten by a zombie, then they have to set up a perimeter and they make the environment so that they can feel safer. Only when they've done those things do they do things like create schools or bonds. Within that, then you get to the esteem, who is going to be recognized as a leader, and then can a person actually grow into who they're supposed to be. So I think it's zombie apocalypse is a useful way to think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, so once you've actually done your analysis and you're starting to think about the audience and how they're going to receive your topic, how receptive are they going to be? There are 4 different options that audience might employ. So it's kind of a useful tool here as well. You do your analysis, you think about it, you come up with your hypothesis, and then really there's only 4 different ways that an audience can react, and you can adapt to those. So the first one is friendly. Is the audience friendly? Are you speaking to the NRA about how great guns are? Easy peasy, right? They're going to love you. They're going to lap it up. So anytime that you're planning on speaking, you're like, okay, no, I think it's pretty straightforward. You don't have as much to do in terms of adapting to the audience. You have a lot of flexibility. That's what I mean by easy peasy. If you kind of think, well, I think the audience is going to be neutral. They're not going to be really strongly on my side or hostile to me. Then the way you approach it is you can really come in with a lot of balance. You demonstrate that you're in control, and you can give that audience a lot of data. If you think the audience is going to be disinterested, they're like, you're like, oh my God, I am going to go speak to a bunch of high school sophomores, and you know that there is probably no less interested audience in the world than high school sophomores. So how are you gonna interact with them and get them to connect with your topic? So the suggestions from the book: keep it short, keep a lot of energy and dynamism. It's okay to be humorous. It's okay to find appropriate jokes, and it's a way to get them interested if they think of you as funny and just sort of that bright energy. If your audience is hostile, if you're anticipating a hostile audience, you definitely want to once again demonstrate that you are controlled. You want to try to show that you're objective. They're going to think you're biased. You need to do everything you can to show that you are objective. It's a good idea to avoid jokes with a hostile crowd. Jokes are always based in pain and can be easily misconstrued. It's just not worth it. And in general, if you can, avoid Q&A with a hostile audience. You're going to go in, you're going to make your pitch, and get out is your best bet.